Good afternoon, everyone. I've been away for a couple of weeks. I know some of you missed me, but I am back and I am really excited because I haven't even told you about the treasure hunt, which is going on next Monday, the 12th. So it's the Classification Guru LinkedIn treasure hunt, which will happen and start at 10 a.m. BST. Over the course of 7 hours, 7 wonderful friends of mine are going to post clues for you, and you're going to have to collect the clues, solve the puzzle, and then you could win a range of amazing prizes. We've got books, we've got courses, we've got artwork, there's Classification Guru webcam covers, there's a course. You can help plant some trees in Nicaragua. There is everything you can think of to win. So it's going to be a really fun day. I hope you can join. If you do want to join, you can follow the hashtag. It's quite a long one, so get ready. It's hashtag TCG LinkedIn Treasure Hunt. And you can catch up with all the information on that. Now, today I've got a great guest on the show. His name is Steve Wells, and he is from Procurement Central. He does a lot of procurement training. So we're going to talk all things training, look at where there are skill shortages, gaps, what's most popular in terms of training, and also all things procurement. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on.
Thank you. Hi, thank you very much, Susan. That was a fabulous welcome, and more importantly, a fabulous introduction. Loving. You sound just like Robbie Williams.
I know, it's amazing.
I'm more of a Tom Jones kind of guy myself, but fabulous. So great to be here. Thank you.
You know what? I think maybe there's a Tom Jones lip sync in the future there. That's a good call.
Well, I'm claiming it. That's mine, and we should do a duo.
I think. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? How did you get started out? Did you fall into procurement like many people, or was this a lifelong career?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm going to do my best. So please, no one switch off, because I know how much we hate sales pitches. First notification is that I won't be doing a big sales pitch. Anything I tell you is because I think it's of interest to people. But firstly, no, Susan, I'm the only person I know who doesn't start with I fell into procurement because I wasn't very good at finance or marketing. Marketing was full up. So I decided. I once worked with a guy, and a lovely man called Jay, and Jay needed some people to move into procurement, and he was telling us that he was recruiting for the procurement team. And the next time we saw him, he said, I've found 3 guys. They all came out of catering. They all used to be cooks.
Oh, wow.
And I think that sums up really some people's approach to, people falling into procurement, in his case, from catering. So no, I didn't. I came from warehousing and inventory, although I didn't realize it was a big profession at the time. And then I got hold of some a BTEC, and did a BTEC in general management, and someone must have mentioned, as well as selling things, that we buy things, and that was quite important as well.
Yeah. Background
again.
would have helped as well. The supply chain logistics background would have helped as well, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was my introduction, and then, as you correctly say, I took a job managing fleets of cars for General Motors and Ford.
Wow.
So the whole supply chain and logistics, the storing, the shifting, the moving, really, got me into the profession. And then, of course, it was, shall we call it, the traditional route of CIPS, the professional body, and taking on some big CPO roles. So, but no, initially there was a path leading to procurement. It wasn't that I, couldn't make it at something else.
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of think that a path into procurement is kind of, I guess, overgrown. There's not a clear path still, I don't think.
No,
unless
no.
people are told about it.
It seems to me that people can't tell a good story about it, you know, when it comes to careers. And so it always seems to be people's second choice, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, but certainly the people I meet, you know, I give them a good account for, you know, the fact that it covers the whole business, that you see the business right from the end to end. That it is a really very effective role that you're playing. You make a massive contribution, and it's a tangible contribution. So, you know, it gets you into places that I'm sounding like a Heineken ad, aren't I? It reaches parts that other careers and other professions don't reach.
Nice. I just got to pause for a second because I completely forgot to say happy 4th of July weekend to all our US friends.
Yes.
We have got, where is he now? Frank is watching us poolside. How cool is that? He's having a great time. And I think George, he's a bit drunk. He had to correct himself.
Well, what's he saying?
He said hi, Duden, instead of Susan. So
I quite like that. I quite like Duden.
Yeah. Yes. And also one of our great US friends, Joanna Martinez, connected us. It's funny how, you know, I've travelled by Zoom over half the world to get introduced to someone who's probably just a few miles away.
Somebody that's right at the end of the street. Yeah. Because we all do know each other in the UK. I'm sure that all our American friends think we know the Queen, and that we're all interconnected with each other anyway, because we're such a small country. But yeah, best wishes to Joanna if she ever watches this.
Hello. Yeah, and actually, yeah, it's been, well, I guess, how have you found the last 12 or so months? Because it does feel like this island has got a lot smaller.
Yeah. So on a personal basis, a little bit of an insight. I'm an only child, and I was born into a tiny little village. So I'm quite used to, you know, sort of my own company. I think the expression is having my own company. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't, you know, on a personal level, it wasn't too much of a stretch. The other thing is that for years, literally years, people have been, you know how people talk about something and it never happens, and that was working from home. Yeah. You know, oh yeah, well, we've got a working from home policy, or can we work from home? And bosses, including myself, I must say, would say, well, I'm not sure it would work, and you know, you'd miss the well, we were forced into it, and we've all managed it rather well, I think. Yeah. So, and look at us, you know, this is number 5 on my list of I don't know what we call it, but video platforms where I talk to people. You know, we seem to have mastered the art of that rather well. So and obviously, as you said in the introduction, when we're doing things like training, there are some things that don't work as well. We run a negotiation course, and I'd much prefer it, you know, if we could be face to face for that. But by and large, we adapt, and you know, I think as we come out of it, or as we're coming out of it now, you know, there'll be a hybrid solution, won't there? Yeah. You know, do you find it
harder to read body language on Zoom, or?
Yeah, that's the bit I miss, because although you and I are very happy to share our head and shoulders, I, for example, this morning I was working in the Middle East. Not all cultures. I mean, you know, they're not shy, but it's just not something that they probably would automatically or do for a long time. They might quickly show you themselves, say good morning, and then the camera goes off. So you don't see you don't even get the what we've got. Yeah. So as you correctly say, you do miss that reading the body language, and you're forever asking them, you know, a bit like, are we nearly there yet, Mum? You know, you're forever asking them, are you still there?
Yeah.
You know, because if you don't see them or hear them, you wonder if they've dropped off.
You make a good point there. I did a lot of training with some people in India, and they always had their cameras off, and I don't think I ever actually saw their faces.
Yeah.
And I would speak for an hour, and I would be like, "Hello,
Yeah,
and or is
Yeah.
everything okay?" And I think out of politeness, they would say everything was fine rather than say, "Can you go over that again?" But at least we recorded the session, so they could go over
Yeah.
it if they needed to.
So clearly there, you know, there are good things about it. We know that, and as you've just said, the recording of it. But I honestly think that if you did some sort of a criteria for measuring the effectiveness of training, I'm going to sort of go out there on a limb and say that, not because I want to go back to traveling the world. I'm not desperate to, you know, go for 12-hour flights and things. I do actually think, you know, being in a room and, you know, getting to know people literally face to face is more effective. But we are where we are. So, you know, it has pushed the working from home agenda and made that real. So I'm pleased about that.
So before we talk about more training, George is asking, what do you enjoy about procurement?
So, George, hi, nice to meet you. And what I enjoy about training is that when you meet people and when you work with people in a training environment, it's not an opportunity that those people have very often. You know, they're in the workplace. It can be quite tough for procurement folk. Sometimes, you know, that they get their heads down. You know, they get pushed back quite a bit. People don't always see the value that procurement deliver. I know we talk about savings, but you know, there's a much bigger offering that procurement make. And not everybody, going back to, you know, bringing people in that are fully trained and fully qualified to do a procurement job instead of from the catering department, you know, it is an illustration of that. So we get the opportunity to talk to people, reassure them, explain to them why their job is of value, why it's important, why it really is, you know, particularly given the pandemic, when we were looking at a lack of supplier relationship management, possibly causing the lack of PPE equipment, the shortages in the essential daily shopping list like toilet rolls and the you know, other essentials. So we get the opportunity to show them examples, and you know, they leave us really inspired. And I can say that because that's the feedback we get, inspired and motivated. And I think as well, you know, there's knowledge that they're getting, but mainly it's that inspiration and motivation that we can give to our procurement colleagues to go back into the workplace and realise they're not there as a personal shopper. They're not there, although they'll say they're in a support function. It's not a subservient function. It is actually a leadership function.
Yeah.
And that's what gives me the buzz.
Brilliant. And if I remember correctly, so you do SIPS accredited, you can get CPD hours from your courses, can't you?
Yeah, so I deliver the CIPS programs for the Institute. And obviously that's goes all the way up to, they're NVQs, and they go all the way up to, I believe it's a master's, but NVQ levels. But yeah, my own company, Procurement Central, we do CPD points, which is roughly 1 hour equals 1 point. That goes towards your CPD continuous learning.
And do you have to do so many hours a year? Because I know, like within the dental profession, they have to maintain so many hours a year to keep up their qualification.
No, so you can watch something for an hour and claim a CPD point, or obviously we'd much prefer you buy one of our courses, which last a little bit longer, and get 3 or 4 CPD points.
Brilliant.
Or come on our lot. I mean, we do live courses, as I'm sure a lot of people do. But one of the things that I just wanted to put in a little bit of a pitch for was, because it does affect people on this call, was that we also have a learning management system where people can buy pre-recorded courses, and we have what I've dubbed courses and resources, and the resources include expert conversations like this one with you and I.
Brilliant.
But you and I will record one around this very subject of the importance of data.
Yeah.
So that, not every qualification course that you might jump on, as you well know, Susan, has that. So in our courses, we can certainly bespoke it to the customer's requirements, so that it's right for their, with case studies and so on. But we can also add in things that you and I know are missing from other course agendas, like the importance of data, or maybe sustainability and environment, or things like that. We can add the things that we consider to be missing and not on other people's agendas.
That's a big one. And actually, thinking about it, are there many procurement training companies out there?
Well, it's funny. It's a funny old thing that you've just said. Obviously, there is the qualifications route, which gets you the, so I'm a fellow of the Institute, but you can become MSIPs, a member of the CIPS. And that is a very formal, a very, shall we say, rigid process. And obviously, you take the exams and you write the assignments and so on. But in terms of what I'm doing is really pulling together, as I say, bespoke courses for companies, big corporates. And yes, some of the big consultancies might tag that in on some of the extra work that they do. We found ourselves up against the Boston Consulting Group the other day. So that's cool. So I wasn't upset that we lost the business. I was more impressed that we were competing with Boston Consulting Group. Yeah.
And you probably, no offense to them, but you probably know more because you've been.
Well, we were probably best on. Now we're live, not to mention that. But anyway, but to your point, there is a specialist angle that we have, not just from an academic theory, but like yourself and a lot of people on this call, practitioners, been there, done it, got our hands dirty, rolled our sleeves up, and people do like to hear the not quite the war stories, but the experience. They like to hear the experience.
It's good. I've got a whole chapter in my book on data horror stories from procurement and data. And there were so many I couldn't put them all in. I mean, I know a choice.
Well, we probably, a lot of us know Peter Smith from who was a previous president of SIP. Yeah. And Peter had a very good book out, and it's the kind of book that we all wish we'd got to first. Bad Buying, and as you say, it's all and I'm afraid there's quite a few of those stories out there. Yeah. So however, people do like to hear. Yes, they like to hear the glory stories, but they also need to know when things don't work well, lessons learned from that. So that's what we bring as well as just the theory.
Brilliant. And what would you say are the most popular types of courses that you do?
Yeah, well, there's 6 of them, funnily enough. So after a great deal of it's a little bit like throwing a stone into a pond, and the first ripple that comes out, there's probably about 6 of those. Yeah. And they tend to be, sourcing, which obviously data is a big part of, sourcing the right partner, sourcing the right supplier, things like category management, again, data and management information essential for putting together a category management program. supplier relationship management, negotiation, they're probably the core. There's probably about 6 of those that are core. And then as the ripples of the pond come out, you've got slightly more cost price analysis or project management, which in the Venn diagram, they all kind of overlap a little bit. And we mentioned sustainability. We ran something recently on ethics, which is probably, as you come out, as the ripples come out, ethics is coming out a little bit further. But the core of them usually are sourcing, contract management, supplier relationship management, negotiations, category management, and probably something around strategic procurement. How we add value.
Yeah, Peter's saying that teaching and understanding TCO, total cost of ownership, is key.
Yeah.
So is that included in a course, or would that?
Oh, yeah. So because both you and I, Susan, like to make the point, and we can be a wee bit provocative, I like to be a bit provocative, in my teaching, and say that I don't like price. Price is, because price, of course, depends on demand and supply. So what we're interested in our professional life, as Peter said, is cost. And of course, the next step is what you might call the hidden costs or the secret costs, meaning, financing, delivery charges, transport, things like that.
And equipment, would that be things like maintenance as well?
Yeah, maintenance, and my go-to example is things like, buying my Hewlett-Packard printer for £25. And of course, the whole life cost when you've replaced 100 print cartridges, a lot of papers got screwed up in it, and the electricity is the total cost of that is a lot more, of course.
Yeah. Oh, someone's saying subscriptions.
What they'd like me to subscribe to them.
I don't know. Is that? I'm not quite sure, but that's what they're saying.
It's a hidden message. It's a hidden message. We need to decode that.
Yeah. Do you know Heather Foch, the toner queen?
You all have these amazing. I need to get a moniker, don't I? I need to be like the rock and roll king or something.
You got to be the procurement training god or something.
God, yeah. I don't know if we can get big. Yeah, I don't know if we can get bigger than God, but that's a good place to start. So I don't is the answer to your question. No, I don't know.
So she does a great thing for her client. She's based out in the US, and so we're talking about ink cartridges, and quite often companies will look at buying, or they'll be sold the newest machine, but actually she looks at the cost of the new cartridges over that life, the life of that product, and actually they're cheaper to stick with the machine they have and use the cartridges. So I find it completely fascinating that people are hoodwinked like that, basically.
Yeah, this is the thing, and this is part of the challenge, isn't it, that we have, in so much as coming back to, I think it was Peter's point about price, or saying about cost, but when people are focused on reducing price, and sadly there's still a lot of very senior people in very senior jobs in big companies, who talk about price reduction. It's easy to, as you say, bamboozle them if you're a smooth talking supplier, when they don't appreciate value or understand value, or, as Peter said, the total cost of ownership. So this is why, back to the previous question about why do I love my job and why do I get a buzz out of running training, it's because you say these things and 20 people in the classroom are all punching the air. Thank goodness you're here, Steve. Why don't they listen to me? Why don't people see the bigger picture? Because I'm afraid, we've still got a lot of people to convince. Organisations.
He's back. He's saying total negotiated benefits. I like that.
Okay. TNB. All right. Okay.
So that's something that I struggle a lot with is getting the purse string holders to invest in their data, because it's not so tangible. They can't look at it and go, right, this is going to save me this. You can start to add hours up here and there, but they just don't see it as valuable or worthwhile as they should.
No, and this is why, Susan, that as I've mentioned to you before, you go into companies, established companies that are household names, really, FTSE companies, and you're scared to death when they're talking in a range of numbers, like millions, between 100 and 170 million. That's a massive variance.
Yeah.
So even 100 and 101 million would be bad enough. But there's no real worry on their face that they're talking like that. And it clearly is the bedrock, the foundation of making decisions, all kinds of decisions, negotiating decisions on who are your if you like, who are your partnership suppliers, who are your A-class suppliers. There's so many areas where if you haven't got that right, you're doomed to failure and doomed to lack credibility. And I'm afraid, it is the case still after such a long time of strategic procurement and doing what we do, that people still don't get the message that accurate data, clean data is important.
Yeah. Peter was just telling us that he was in strategic procurement for 22 years. So Peter, I think I need to get you on here as well so that you can share some of your stories at some point. And then there's a bit of conversation going on in the chat. Peter's again saying specification drive cost, especially when written for a specific application and not generic enough. Okay, and then Azalea.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just to jump in on that, what I would quickly say is that, and again, I'm sure this will resonate with a lot of people, is that again, just being provocative, I think we can do more to reduce cost with an internal conversation, meaning the specification. I have a few blokey friends, and blokey mates, they tend to like lots of gadgets, applications, whistles and bells. And when you're specifying that kind of, the all singing, all dancing version, obviously you're adding all that cost to the product or the service, of course. So to the point that's made, the first place that we can make a huge contribution, even before we talk to a supplier, is talking to our own business about that might be what you want, but it's not what you need, is it?
Yeah.
And I know it's going to hurt your feelings to say, you need a Skoda instead of a Ferrari, but it's that kind of conversation.
Yeah, it's so true. Azalea is saying, what can we attach data services to give it value in buyers' eyes? But for me, I don't think we should be attaching it to anything, because that's the problem. In my world, that is the problem. What I do now has always been attached to software or analytics. And so people don't see the value. So if we keep hiding it, it's like a hidden cost.
Yeah,
they've made it into a hidden cost.
Yeah.
We need to educate, I think, so that it becomes an asset in its own right. In most instances, businesses would fall apart if they lost their data overnight.
Yeah,
it's that valuable, but it doesn't sit on the balance sheet at all.
It should be, when you become a leader, a CPO, when you get a new a new role, a decision maker, a category manager's role. I mean, the very first place you go, I don't know, maybe I've just been brought up this way, is to pull the ledger. You pull the ledger and you look at the data. Now, chances are, as you all know, the data will be, IBM will be recorded 29 times. It will be recorded as IBM Havana, IBM Portsmouth, IMB, blah, 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 blah. And, cleaning that data is the very first thing that people, it's not the first thing that you've been given by your boss to do. It wasn't one of the interview questions, but it's one of the things you've got to do. Because, as you say, without that solid foundation, everything else is going to fall flat on its, and you're going to look an idiot when you go to the boardroom. You get the opportunity to present, and people say, oh, that's not real, or that's made up, or or you've claimed a benefit. Of course, somebody just said to us a moment ago, negotiated benefits. When you claim a benefit, we're one of the few departments, one of the few functions that still has to justify its job every day with a saving, a benefit. Let's be generous and say a benefit. But how can you do that if your data's not right? Because other people will run away and say, how dare procurement, how dare a little, upstart crow, how dare he come around claiming that he's added some value or benefit. I'm going to go and check that out. So if your data's not right, that's probably your chance gone. That's a moment of glory gone.
Peter's saying procurement's often at odds with the internal customer. It's all about walking fine lines, working together. It's true.
Yeah, it is true, but it shouldn't be the case. And for once, I'm going to say the internal customer is not always right. And our job is also to say, sometimes to say slow down, sometimes to say, if you don't follow our process, and by that I mean, accurately, budgeting, the very start of the process, getting accurate data, the budgeting process. If you don't work with us, all we'll do is we won't be approving it. We won't be talking to the chief executive, which is what I used to do at the Olympic and at AXA, and taking them through the business case and explaining it. I won't be doing that if you don't involve me right from the. It's no good coming.
Okay, let's just back it right up.
Yeah, back it right up.
Talking about the Olympics, let's talk about that.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, a little name dropper that I was there. Oh, back it right up. I get your point. So
tell us what you did there and what was that like?
All right, hang on a minute. What's the time? Oh, we need another hour, I think.
We've got time. Yeah. It must have been fascinating.
Yeah. So what happened at the Olympics was that they were cruising along very comfortably. And this is actually, I don't know if we do have time, but this is actually a story that's right on the money when it comes to the subject of classification and data. We
absolutely have time. I want to hear this.
All right. Well, for those, because I know we have to log off at 5, so I'll try and condense it. But very quickly, what happened was I got a phone call. And it was one of those summer afternoons, about 18 months before July and August 2012. And it was kind of be here now. And one of the ex-presidents of SITS, Jerry Walsh, was at the Olympics. And what had happened was that the security, which is the biggest spend of anything, had suddenly gone through the roof because there'd been the July 7 bombings in London. The bombers from Luton had come to town and disrupted London and caused chaos, of course. And from there, the spend level had trebled literally overnight. And so I got a phone call to join Jerry because they thought they'd done enough, and obviously it wasn't enough for the to not just make sure that they had that the stadiums were secure, but to make sure that everyone in the country, who were worried about terrorism or so on, that they had a safe games.
Yeah.
So that was the introduction to it. But the story, very quickly, that I just want to share was the fact that the company we dealt with, and a lot of you who went to the games or took an interest in it will know that it was G4S. And what happened was when the spend level treble, what happened was consultants were brought in and they said we need 3 times as much in terms of, we need about 25,000 guards, and we need scanners, and we need fences, we need barriers, we need CCTV, etc., etc. We'd got some of that, and we'd already told G4S they've got the contract. But then obviously when the situation changed, July the 7th, and the consultant said it's all trebled, what happened was G4S said, well, we just need to get on with it. Can you just sign the check? Because if you want to deliver this on time for a safe games, we haven't got time to explain to you what we're going to spend the money on.
Wow.
So this is where accurate data, they wouldn't let us have it. They were exploiting, and this is all, by the way, this is all in the public domain, so I'm not snitching, because there was a public inquiry, and a lot of the G4S guys that I worked with lost their jobs over it. So including
I was about to swear there. I was just said, oh dear.
Yeah. So including their chief executive. So and it was a major issue for the company. But nonetheless, the way we did it was to do our own building up of costs, cost modelling on what we believed we should be paying. And we also got involved with the Treasury. We got involved with other, what they call Crown Reps, to make sure that we were all aligned. And then I went in and had conversations with B4S and said to them, this is what I believe it should cost. And it's a lot less. It's about 100 million less than you're telling me. So you need to explain to me, why we've got such a difference. And anyway, it is a long story short, but obviously they started to open the books a bit more. But that is a great example of somebody who, where you don't have the data, and because you could have just thrown the checkbook at them, signed.
Well, I mean, I don't know the situation. I didn't read up on it, but it does kind of sound like they were exploiting the fear.
They were. People. Yeah, the fear. The clock was running. Unlike the Japanese one, which will happen in a couple of weeks' time, that has been put off from 2020, a bit like the Euros. And we couldn't do that. The Queen and Daniel Craig were ready to jump into a helicopter, and we couldn't change the date. And they knew that. They knew that the clock was ticking, and that we had a deadline, and that security, as you correctly said, has a big fear factor. So we had to, it was a calculated risk that I took. But I wasn't prepared to just sign off without having transparency of data, meaning, where was the money going? It was taxpayer. It was my money. It was your money. And consequently, long story short, by doing cost modelling and doing our own data collection, so for example, they said they needed money spending on IT. So you go to your own IT director. And you say, if I replicate this, if I model this, is that about right? And you start to see these big variances. Property, you go to a property colleague that you've worked with, and you do the property calculation. So it is a great it was that's where I got my grey hair, obviously. But it is a good story in the end, because it's all about the importance of data backing up. In my case, going in front of, in fact, it was not as Prime Minister, but Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, and presenting to the civil servants on the case for why we needed some more money, but the fact that we were, modelling this to make sure that it wasn't excess money in the same way that G4S were claiming.
On the procurement side, there's an attitude thing there as well, that you were proactive enough to not just take it at face value and accept it and it's G4S, of course we can trust them. You did, you didn't just do that. So what a fascinating story.
That's right. Let's trust them as they pull up in their Jags and they tell us about their holiday homes that they've just bought. There's a bit of leadership, a bit of confidence, a bit of front, but also you can't do that, Susan. Stating the obvious, which everyone on this call will know, you can't do that if you can't back it up, because you need support. You need the Crown reps to support you, the other people in government who are dealing with G4S. You need the Treasury to support you, as well as facing off to the supplier. So, taking the stakeholders with you requires you to have the facts, yes, at your fingertips, but also to be accurate.
Yeah, Jeanette's just made a good point. It's amazing to see how companies will spend to collect data and then never invest in data management.
Absolutely, and that I'm afraid, it's a good example of that is. Ariba systems, which is my background. I know that there's other systems. It's the quick caveat that the BBC give now, is that the systems are available. But Ariba was my experience, and people put a lot of time investing in that, buying all the applications for it. And then not using the data the whole point of Ariba is to collect data on spend and centralize it, so that you've got a helicopter view of what's going on in a big in a regional organization or a global organization. You're absolutely right. They do all that front end stuff, but they don't do the completer finisher bit and use the data.
I've been paid to fix well-known data companies' data because I've had to cleanse it because it's not been right. But I've got a good question here from S. Campbell. His wife is in the purchasing department in a leadership role in one of the giant chemical companies. She usually procures raw materials for chemical production and leads a team for engineering purchases like equipment, instruments, etc. How can data analysis help her in procurement better? He's looking for us to throw some light on that. We need another hour just to tell him that.
Bring your wife on the call, I think, is the easy answer. But I'm not sure data is the only solution there. I think there's, as Susan said, I think there's 2 or 3 other things that if we had the time, we'd be talking about. We don't know the full picture with that particular case study, but certainly what I would throw back at that is to say, is just to reiterate some of the points I've made. Confidence grows from having accurate data or solid numbers. Now, I am not that person, which is why I'm very happy, and which is why Joanna's obviously teamed Susan and I up together, because I'm not a data or details person, but I know, to your point, I know I need that, and I know that I need that because when I meet people in the business, and I think when I'm meeting people in the business, I need to be able to look them in the eye in confidence as an equal, as a partner, as well as a business leader, and be able to challenge them.
Yeah.
And I know that some people will want to work with us, but not everybody does. And not everybody likes to see us be successful. And that is unfortunate, but that's the way of the world. So the first thing I would want to do is to look at stakeholder management, but not as a soft, friendly thing, but using data. What do we spend? Is it at risk? Are we doing the right? Are we dealing with the right suppliers? Are we spending, of course, more than we should? You know, and you can't start to ask those tough questions and investigate something, which is kind of a bit in our DNA to do because we're cynical people, without having data. So I say data is key, but the outputs, if you like, are really that we want to challenge people. As I said before, the first challenge is, why do you want it? You might need it, but I think there's a big variance between what you want and what you need. And then all the questions about, you know, are we dealing with companies? Are we spending more than we should? Are they secure? What are the risks? And the data, internal data I'm talking about, as well as things like what's happening in, you know, a macroeconomics level as well, that really makes us more of a leader than it does a quote unquote support function.
Yeah.
So I suspect at the heart of that question is that the wife is feeling a little bit like, you know, a support function and just, you know, the company shopper rather than the strategic procurement function she wants to be. But I may be taking a bit of a liberty saying that, because obviously I don't know the full situation.
Yeah, some people are just suggesting that his wife connects with Procurement Foundry as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that's an option. But if somebody was stuck in that kind of shopper role and wanted to transition to something more strategic, I mean, how do you go about that?
Yeah, well, obviously you have to pull together probably 5 people in the organisation that you're going to be convinced about that. One is probably your line manager or boss. One is a trusted colleague, because it's probably almost impossible for you to do it all on your own.
Yeah.
If you talk to your line manager, they'll be skeptical because they don't. No one likes change.
Yeah,
no one likes a maverick, do they?
No.
And so the biggest. Okay, good. All right. Thanks for that little message. Sorry. And also, if you can find somebody who does take risks, which could be, you know, a board level person, you know, you need to be able to approach them and say, you know, this is what I've been thinking. How do you feel? I've spoken to my line manager. I've spoken to a couple of colleagues. I just want to run it by you. So I think it's that kind of network, isn't it? You've got to build a network and you've got to kick it around, because if there is hostile resistance to you, then you're in the wrong company. But if people say, oh, you might have a point there, you know, but really in the next 10 minutes, you know, or 5 minutes, I don't have enough time to say, you know, that there's a whole heap of, you know, I've had a lifetime of experience doing this and happy to teach people how to do it. But we can't convey that just in 5 minutes. But the first thing
I mean,
would do,
I'm getting a sense of what your training courses must be like. So yeah, I think they must be pretty awesome.
But I think the network is probably the first thing I'd want to do. I'd want to kind of, you know, as they say, kick the tires, test the theory a little bit, and see, you know, what other people see, if your organisation is resistant to change, or whether you're in a kind of organisation that's going to see you as change agent.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some crazy statements back to me. The biggest of global companies who acknowledge that they don't even have the same GL codes across the company. Yeah. Different regions are using different GL codes for the same thing. But they're okay for that. There's no appetite to change it.
No appetite for change.
Yeah.
They don't see the problem. More importantly, they don't see the problem, and they don't see the benefits of it. But the thing to some of the questions coming in on chat is, okay, if they don't see the risk, the problem is it's a real barrier to people like me, because I'm coming in and on my white charger, I'm talking about making change and delivering benefits. But actually now this is so it's almost one of the core questions. It should be the core question at the interview. Are you going to let me clean the data and get access to accurate data? Because without it, I can't do all the other things that, you've hired me for.
Yeah. We need to worm that into SIPs a bit more as well, I think.
We'll do it. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to assist on that.
Slowly plant little seeds everywhere, and then they'll start to grow eventually.
Yeah, hopefully.
So if people aren't investing in training, why should they?
I'm sure that there's a Richard Branson quote, which is somewhere in the back of my mind, about the fact that, what is it? Train them and they'll stay, or or now I'm probably drifting off with Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams or something, but they will come, and they will come.
Is it the one about what if I don't train them and they?
That's right.
What if I train them and they leave, or what if you don't train them and they stay?
So yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, but the point is, I think that, and by the way, certainly there's a lot of interest. There is a lot of interest growing, and I think it's because of the pandemic and because of the shortages and because of the effect on supply chains that people are, reaching out for more training and education. But I just think, people in supply chain and procurement and other related activities, they do see the gaps. They do see the problems. They are passionate about wanting to change. And for me, it's unlocking that passion. It's giving them the tools and the capability to not just be frustrated by it, but actually to become the change agent and do something about it. So if you want to be complaining and whinging and, going home every night and boring your partner over fish fingers, that's fine. But if you actually want to do something about it, work with me and get on one of our training courses.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I have popped the link to your website in the chat. What can we expect from you over the coming months? Have you got anything planned?
So we are delivering for SIPs, but we've got a new website. This sounds like the movie bit. Does a movie or talking to Oasis for a new CD or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a new album coming out. We've got a new website coming out in September. We've got these animated courses and pre-recorded, which people can buy and watch at their leisure. We've obviously got live courses, but new website. We've got a learning management system. All of that is work in progress. We've got, you and I are going to make a video like this, just that we can.
Not lip syncing, just a video.
Well, I was just going to ask you whether you're going to close the show with another. With Angels or something.
I have another Robbie song to close the show.
Excellent! I can't wait. Yeah. But you and I and Joanna and other people that Art of Procurement, Philip. I've just done a podcast with him. So keeping the message going, keep the faith. Keep the message about strategic procurement, and don't give up and don't lose the faith, we can make a difference, we can make a change.
Well,
It's like a party political broadcast, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it ties in nicely with my TEDx talk as well. Say no to no, challenge.
Exactly. Say no to no.
Say no to the no's. Great. Well, I will pop you backstage. Thank you so much for your time.
Right.
It was great to have you on. Really great discussion. Thank you. Oh, cut them off a wee bit short there. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so my TED Talk is live, or my TEDx talk. It's available on the TEDx YouTube channel. You can also check out one of my many posts that I have posted about it, or will be posting about it. And next week is Treasure Hunt Day, so I'm going to try and arrange some special guests for the treasure hunt. So we'll make it a bit of an exciting and fun hour. As always, if you have any guests that you would like to see on the show, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next week.
Now go